Yo, what up, everyone? Welcome to the Portal Room. It's your boy Paul and co-hosting again. We got Christian joining the Portal Room. What's up, Christian?
What's up, brother? How are you? It's good to see you. Glad to be back.
Glad you're back, and I am doing good, surprisingly, on a Monday. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get into this one today because there's a lot of people actually really excited for this, believe it or not. Actually, I believe it. So, yeah, we got Navy vet. I consider her a great researcher, experiencer, and just all around great person. So, without further ado, let's welcome B. Hey, B.
Good evening,
Yay!
everyone. So happy to be here with you guys.
Hey, hey, hey. So, B, we're gonna do our usual here with you. Um, and yeah, for the sake of staying a little anonymous, B's gonna just not have the cam for this episode, which is totally cool. But B, so let's get into it. Give us some of the backstory. How long have you been interested in this? And kind of give us the origins of maybe how some of these experiences started and yeah, let's start there if you can.
Sure. Well, I wasn't actually interested in the subject until 2015. And, I'll back up a little bit and explain how I got into it. Um, I, I, I actually have a pinned tweet on my profile that tried to go through some of my anomalous experience. They weren't UAP experiences per se, but more like a psi, a heavy experiences that I had growing up, including some pretty weird stuff, right? Um, I don't know. I was in an accelerated program through high school and was able to graduate high school and college 2 years early. When I was 15, I had already finished, and at 16 I was signing the paperwork to go into the Navy. I was also married when I was 15, um, and went off and still went through the schools and everything, and didn't join the military until I was 17. So I'd already signed the paperwork, and a month after I turned 17 I was off to boot camp, um, in the Navy, and I was on the USS Emory S. Land. It's a nuclear submarine tender. It's a really big ship where it's like a dry dock for submarines in the fleet. Um, and we'd went out for Hurricane Fran. It was my first time going out, and we stayed out for a few weeks afterwards doing maintenance and drill runs. And I just had this overwhelming urge to write this song. I was going through these spurts of, I guess it could be referred to like automatic writing, just being possessed to get words on the pen or paper or walls or napkins or just whatever I could. But I'd went up onto the helo deck, and I'm sitting there writing this song about angels crying. And I'm only 17 at the time, and looking back, some of the words of that, there's to me, it didn't come from me because there was words in there that I didn't comprehend. And I looked up and saw two big orange glowies right off of the out at the ship, and it was the time of the day was right at sunset, so it was that beautiful purple-esque kind of light, and nothing but sky and sea, 360-degree horizon, and two bright orange glowies just phasing in and out, sometimes in the same spot, sometimes slightly to the side or above or below. It was obvious that they weren't flares. And I was actually late getting back to the IC shop, interior communication shop, and I actually tried to report it, and the guy looked at me and thought I was, well, he asked me if I'd had enough sleep, or you don't get sleep when you're underway. The hours are crazy working
Typical.
underway, right? So anyway, they kind of laughed it off, and I never thought anything else about it, until 2015. I'm watching this documentary, Thrive, What on Earth Would It Take, with Hasim Haramein. Um, and all of a sudden, there's Stephen Greer that pops in, and he starts talking about this stuff. But nothing that didn't really catch my attention until I saw they actually showed a video of an orange orb And I snapped to what? I've seen that before. What is that? And that started it for me. I started researching him and what he was saying, not only about disclosure, but mainly about the CE5 stuff. And I started researching him and other groups that were doing it, like ESETI and the People's Disclosure Movement. And it's kind of cool how I evolved through all the different little groups researching it. Because I actually, before I tried it, I actually came upon the decision because I noticed that all these different people were, I mean, they were filming the same types of stuff, but they all believed that the originations were completely different from each other. So I decided I'd made the cognizant decision that I wasn't going to believe anybody's statements about what they were. I was going to let it show me what it was. And I'm really glad I did that, because now, looking back as I'm working my way through these different groups, trying to figure out what this stuff is, looking back, I actually could see this stuff meshing to my subconscious beliefs and expectations and intent of what I would see and what I believed it would be. And that started the whole quantum drama run, the whole mind matter interface, the whole observer belief effect, and everything else that entails.
So, what year was this specifically when you started to go headfirst into all of the CE5 and research with like
2015.
contact modalities?
Yeah, 2015. And I actually, it took me, I don't know, it took about a month and a half, 2 months before, because I'd seen some stuff, right? But my mind would write off, well, it could have been this, it could have been that, or it could have just, whatever. But it wasn't until, I mean, it was just unmistakable. I was seeing stuff that wasn't natural. And still, even then, it wasn't until I started recording the stuff and being able to watch it back that I really could get into my mind that I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't seeing stuff like this stuff was really happening. And really, the only reason I started recording, because my family thought I was losing my mind. Because there's one night, and this orb is flashing and doing power ups, and my husband could not see it. I was like, "You can't see that light. Why can't you see that light?" And he thought I was losing my mind. So I actually only started recording to verify that I didn't need to go to a mental hospital or anything like that. But then, as fate would have it, he actually started participating with me and seeing it for himself. Um, and as he also had his own out there experience back in 2008 in Louisiana, seeing some weird stuff with some friends of his that shook his world. So he's an experiencer too, but I can't really say he's an experiencer as much as he is a witness, because that's where the differences in those words come in, right? Because he doesn't get the feelings to go look like we do. He doesn't get the emotional cosplay, and he doesn't seem to, it doesn't hit him like it does me. I mean, he sees it, but he doesn't experience it, and there's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's kind of an investment of the soul. Christian, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, 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 you're fine. And I just want to say thanks again for being here, sister. Like, really appreciate it. It's important to me that you're on here. And the reason why, guys, and I want to like say this, is that B, I think, is one of the most well-researched individuals as far as the phenomena is concerned, as far as the science is also concerned. So B, your experience started, and would you say your first initial experience with the phenomena started with the Navy, or was there anything previously, like would you say like in your childhood that kind of moved you into this direction at all? Because I feel like with the phenomena, I know Paul likes to say this a lot, it's UFO destiny, right? There's always like these catalytic type of moments in our lives that, like, even from early childhood, that move us kind of in this direction to even witness this, to make us like aware that we even have this connection of what like you're talking about right now, that call, right? To like you hear it, you feel the vibration within yourself to kind of go outside and see these things, witness them, whatever that might mean. Is there anything like previously that occurred, like maybe when you're a bit younger, that you might be able to put your finger on?
Absolutely. There is a bunch of weird stuff. Well, you're speaking of call. It's really, that's another weird thing about this phenomena, is the calls, because I also got a call on, I don't know if you remember, or if you guys are old enough to know, in the early 80s, they had these old Fisher Price plastic toy phones that would roll across the floor and make a clink, 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 it was a play phone. And in the middle of the night, I'm 4.5, my sister's 5.5. This phone would ring in the middle of the night, and we would get up and answer it. And there was a woman talking on the other end in a foreign language that neither one of us can still place. And it would talk back to us and laugh. And I remember her laugh. I mean, it was just a beautiful, oh, I'm covered in chills. Beautiful Tinkerbell laugh, just gorgeous. Well, it did take several times over. I'd say it was over a course of about 3 months of waking my parents up about this nice lady on the phone that my dad ended up throwing it out into the dumpster. Um,
So creepy.
so creepy. That was in Kentucky, Fort Knox. My dad was in the army, and then we went over to Germany, and we were actually on a field trip in kindergarten, and they have these beautiful castles in Germany, these old cobblestone, cement, concrete castles with these big ponds and koi ponds. And there was something, as we're walking back out to get back on the bus to go to school, there was just like this white mist fog. It wasn't a mist because it was thicker than a mist. I mean, it was actually like gelatinous, moving over the top of the water, and it was about the size of a minivan, you know. And me and several other kids saw it, and we didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what we were looking at. Um, a few other things. I guess right before I went in the military, after I graduated, and I was waiting to go out. I thought I was grown. Went out and took some mushrooms with some friends in the middle of the woods, and we're sitting there, and we're just all. I remember we're just sitting in a circle, and I'm brushing my hair over and over and over. So much, and I'm singing, right, and just singing to him, and we're all just swaying, and I'm singing, and all of a sudden the one moon becomes two moons. There's two moons in the sky, and one is falling, not falling, but just like floating, coming closer and closer, and it's just, things got, I don't know, it was just like a flash of a moment. It was like a blink of an eye, and it's the next morning, and I'm sitting cross-legged on the forest floor, and looking out at the friends, and everybody's like befuddled, and like nobody knows. We talked about it, like nobody knew if that was real or if it was a figment of our imaginations, but we all saw the same thing and could only remember up to a certain point. So, but I don't consider that a UAP experience because of that other factor, which, when I went into the Navy, when I went off the maps, I was like, you got to tell us if you've ever done any drugs, because we'll know if you've ever done anything. So I admitted to it. So I lost my security clearance for 2 years. And that just got stuck in the interior communication shop. um, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that so so basically what you're saying is that you have been having like high strangeness experiences for majority of your life, right? Would you say?
For sure.
Right. Okay, yeah. And that's like I feel like there's a lot of like there's like different kind of categories of experiencers where you've got like people who have had one event that kind of like sent them down like this path, or you've had like individuals who've experienced high strangeness like majority of their lives, and it sounds like you have. So you got to the point of where you're in the Navy, you saw this, you started, going out for like doing like C5, you saw Greer. Like tell us about like your first C5 experience and how that like what that was like for you and what kind of path that sent you down after that experience.
It has completely changed my life. It has completely changed the direction of my life. My waking moments are filled with nothing but this subject, and trying to get a better grasp on reality, because I know for a fact it is not what we've all been led to believe. And whether that was through ignorance or through purposeful misdirection by powers that be, is a question for us all to have to ask and answer to. But it's just obvious, right? Dude, I've had some crazy, crazy CE5 experiments, and well, experiments is the right word, because that's exactly what I've been doing. I've been experimenting, engaging the phenomena via different uh, techniques, different approaches, different. Um, I've with people alone. Some of my most powerful ones are with people that I have a deep bond with. But that, I mean, we see that in quantum entanglement experiments, even, with the renewed double slit experiment that Dean Radin and Ions is doing, is when you get people that have a cohesive bond between them, that combined attention and intention and focused intent between them, sway the outcomes of these experiments. 10 Sigma fried, like capitulated over. There's something in that increases that vibration, that resonance that we're tuning into when we're engaging the phenomena on our own accord.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, B. I wanted to actually ask you, because I think this is maybe where Christian was trying to lead us down. So you started kind of experimenting with contact modalities around 2015. Give us one of the experiences where you captured some of these orbs or phenomena, like your picture there, and let's maybe get into some of those, or whichever one you want to start with. And then I have some of your pictures and a video as well, if you want me to show that while you kind of go over it too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah, we can start with my profile picture. And I've actually got a daytime photo from the same location where I was. I mean, this was ground level, right across the street from my front door. I actually included my daughter at the time, who was 18, and we did CE5 together. And I also posted and sent you a screenshot of my Google timeline photos. The big light in the middle is the moon. It was the super moon of 2018. And we're out there doing CE5, and you can actually see the progression of these orbs show up beneath them and coming in. But the strangest thing about this night, well, I don't know, there's quite a few different strange things about this night. My daughter and I only remember up to a certain point, and then it's just, we're waking up the next morning. And she's asking me, Mom, what happened? Did we get abducted by aliens? I'm like, no, no, we did not. I don't
Don't
know
you
what
put that evil
happened.
on me.
No,
Wow.
but I have a lot of regret from involving her, because while 2 days before that marked the last, because I had suddenly, well, I sustained polytraumatic brain injuries while I was in the military in MST, and was actually killed. When I was in the military, I was murdered by an AWOL Marine, drowned in the Chesapeake Bay, and I had my first NDE during that time, and that was, let me tell you about it. I remember. Okay, so I'm popped up above the water. I'm like, well, and the only thing was, well, that sucks. I wasn't upset, mad, scared. Well, that sucks. Wait, what about my sister? Because we'd had plans, because she'd had a kid, and we'd had plans that when I got settled, I was going to move her and my niece up with me, right, and help take care of them. And before I could even finish that thought, that's one of the most profound lessons I got from that NDE was the true power and speed of our thoughts. Because the way that we've adapted to thinking are words. We have to phrase everything in these little boxes called words, and it slows down that processing speed so far. But before I could even finish thinking out those words, I was in her room. I was above her in the corner of her room. I could see her. I could see, and it's like I knew everything. I knew what she was thinking and what she was doing and what she was going to do. I knew everything, and I was able to validate this with her later after the fact. But yeah, that was crazy. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. Anyway, I started having grand mal tonic-clonic seizures, really bad as a result of polytraumatic brain injuries. And 2 days before this experience was the last grand mal tonic-clonic seizure I've ever had. It also marked the ending of some severe gastritis and gastroparalysis issues that I was having, and my thyroid, goiter, and nodules just disappeared. But my daughter also started having ailments. She started showing signs of radiation exposure. She started having migraines. She started having eye vision problems, and they did an MRI and found her brain morphing in that same central location that we see with so many others, and that we've heard about so much. And I've even posted pictures of her MRI on on that post with it. So I have a lot of guilt with involving her. She still sees stuff. She still sees the flash bulbs, and the little orbs moving, but they're really distant. I don't know. I've had a couple of instances of missing time. Another time, I had my husband with me, and we were doing harvest. He's a CDL driver, and we're doing harvest, and we're up in Minnesota, in this little town called Bird Island, in this little hotel where it was in the middle of nowhere, and all out the back of it was nothing but soybean field and sugar beet field. And we're doing a CE5, and I have a video, and you can hear him talking, and we're both talking like, look here, look there, there's one. And he's like, no, B, there's three, look right there. And I'm turning and I'm looking, and all of a sudden there's this flash that goes by the camera. And I've tried to have it analyzed. Nobody can figure out what it was. It wasn't a spill or a drop or anything. There's some kind of thing that speeds by the camera. But all of a sudden, it makes no sense how we were having such a phenomenal response that we both became just overwhelmingly exhausted. Like, we just had to pack up and go upstairs. And I remember trudging upstairs, and we were just so overcome with exhaustion. But my dog, I have a service animal, a German Shepherd service animal that we left in the hotel room, and he always senses me coming. He's at the door before I get there, like he knows. And my pictures that night show as I'm going in, because we were remarkable about it because he didn't move. I mean, he was just laid out on the bed and didn't move, like comatose. Like, what's wrong with him? But neither one of us could think straight because we were just, like I said, exhausted. The next morning, I wake up and I look over my phone, and there's more pictures after that. I go over my Google Map history, and it shows, well, I went over both of our Google Map histories, and it shows that he stayed in the hotel room, but somehow I went and a mile and a half out into the middle of a field and come back and didn't even know, and had a couple of pictures that I still can't explain. Just weird lights, you know what I mean? But there's been a couple of shared missing time experiences, and a couple alone, that really, between that and the physiological effects that I now know are causative of getting into close contact with this stuff, that I've really I kind of backed off a couple of years ago from doing Heist and C5. I still see the stuff all the time. I just had 2 videos 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that I posted online. But I got a Moopus watch too. And you guys are familiar with Jim Segalas and the Moopus watch. I'm actually wearing it right now. I'd had it on my bedside table just planning on getting a baseline data before I actually go about initiating engaging contact again. And I haven't logged into it yet to hopefully it caught those two that I got a couple of weeks ago to see if there's any kind of difference, because it was directly above my bedroom where my watch was. So I'm hoping that caught it. But I think I'm driven to try to figure out what's going on during these missing time events, because I don't believe for a second that I was abducted. I believe that there's something in the environmental noise when this stuff pops in, between that gamma and the radio frequency and all these environmental changes. And it's happenstance that somehow it's like interfering with our neuronal timing belt and maybe perhaps putting us into, like an autopilot mode.
I absolutely agree with that. B, is this the video you're talking about from a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah. The first one is just bare sky. It was during somebody's space, and I'm not going to say any names, but somebody was. I don't know. There's a lot of ego out there with people. There's some phases, and some people go through this egocentric kind of. They get stuck in it, and I'm like, yeah, watch this, and I go out and I just start filming. I'm like, and you can watch up to 28 seconds. There's nothing, and then I say, here they come. And 3 seconds later, there's flash bulb right there in the center screen.
Was that flash right
Yeah,
here?
yeah,
Hold on, go back to that.
3 seconds before that, I say, "Here they come," because you can
right
feel.
there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
interesting. Okay, you have
and
another
then
one too, right?
yeah, the next one was 3 days later. Same kind of story. It was during a phase. I'm like, yes. I go outside and there's the spazzy lights, and my husband saw the spazzy lights, and I was trying to get those on film, but my phone wouldn't capture them. And all of a sudden, that shows up, and it's way bigger than the stars. We checked with flight radar, and also had our friend Grider check through all of his in-sync devices, where he could check to see if there was no drones in the sky, no aircraft in the sky. So it is at this time still unexplained. And my husband saw that one. He saw the spazzy lights, but he didn't see that one.
What is this one, B, right here?
That's another CE5 event. That's I don't know. Those I think those are the kind that we hear about when people are talking about Shiva and Ezekiel's will. I mean, when you go back to the original texts of what those both represented, they were more similar than dissimilar. And that's also the kind, that's the exact same kind, that can protrude a laser-like light out, like a lighthouse. That was another really interesting experience that I had Olaf Rockner try to recreate for me, because I was still in Texas in the same spot that I'd filmed my current profile picture in, but it was 1.5 blocks. It was 1 block up and half a block over where I'd set up my little camp, in my little chair and my blanket stuff. And I'd gone back to the house or something, and I was on my way back to that spot, and I'm on the phone with my husband, and I'd already done the protocol and the meditation and everything. I'd already seen a couple of things, right? And I'm walking back up, and I see that thing in that video, and it's shining out a beacon like a lighthouse, and it's like if you saw Lord of the Rings and how the ISR shoots out that little light looking for Frodo and Sam, it felt like that. And as soon as I rounded the corner, it landed. I watched the beam come down 1 inch from my big toe. I'm on the phone with my husband, and I'm, wow, babe, look. And I'm looking up at it, big open mouth grin, and I'm waking up the next morning. My husband said the phone disconnected. He tried to call me back, went straight to voicemail. No memory of it whatsoever. My Google map said that I stayed out there for another 1.5 hours and then went home, but I don't remember any of it.
Wow. What was
Wow.
the location data? Did it stop right there, or were you did you go other places on the
No,
location data?
it said I sat right there and then walked home.
Interesting. Wow. That's very I mean, to me, I don't know, Paul. I don't know about you, but to me, it sounds like an abduction experience. You know, like I can't. There's no other way I can really like describe that. I'd be very interested to know
I
what happened
I
in that
I
time as well.
I also think there's like the ontological nature of the phenomena distorts time, I think, is maybe another avenue to go through, especially when you think about what they're capable of doing, right? So if somehow they're coming into our reality and they're able to manipulate time, maybe whatever, if it's propulsion or if it's just the essence of these higher dimensional whatever craft, then maybe that has an effect on people just by its presence alone, right? Where it just distorts everything around it. So maybe that's possibly another avenue just to kind of take away the spooky aspect of of the abduction. You know what I mean? I've had times too where I was like, really, I was out there for that long, like you know what I mean? So I mean, you kind of get lost in these things sometimes. But B, is this the daytime location of your picture that you have?
Yeah, and if you want to stand them up side by side, you can actually see it's on the other side of the fence. That's a salvage yard that was across the street. But that
Like
you
right
see
there,
the
right?
fence. Yep.
That's
Uh-huh. And the light coming from the left is the motion detector light on that building. If you look through like the Google timeline screenshot that I sent you, it wasn't on there at the beginning, but those orbs set it off.
mm,
So
uh,
that it, like was it a waveform of light? Was it a light molecule? Was it something that the light sensor picked up as a physical movement? Um, but I've seen this stuff shift from just a faint light mist into a heavy gelatinous type of plasmatic type of almost liquidy solidified type of stuff. Like it can shift its density and weight um when it's coming in and going out. I've this stuff can it can wow. I've also been looking for others with these types of experiences. Have you guys ever heard of the invisible artist?
I haven't heard of that. What is that, B? Please enlighten me.
There's two different types that I've seen, and there's just these really, it's kind of like geometric shapes that are in the sky. I've seen them both ways, just stamped in the sky, like all of a sudden showed up. Like any of my UAP pictures that you see in blue, that doesn't represent the color that they were. Those were just artifacts of the video analysis that was done to show them. But there's one that looks like a triple helix DNA structure. That one was a stamp in the sky. It showed up all at the same time, a perfect little picture, the whole shape. I've also seen it start at one point in the sky, the light draw out a shape, and the beginning point to the end point were so finely controlled that they would dissipate or disappear at the exact same moment. You would expect, like, if somebody was utilizing something like that, the beginning point would fade out before the end. It's not the case with this stuff. There's a control that's obvious in it, and it's really quite remarkable.
What would you
I wanted
say?
to,
Like, oh yeah, go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
go ahead, ask your question. I can ask after. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Just real quick, like from your remove kind of like all the preconceived notions and the lore and all that. B, what would you interpret that as? Like, what do you believe in that moment that you're witnessing occurring?
At this moment in time, m- learning what I have through the experiences, I mean, I think there's phases and there's patterns amongst experiencers of all the different branches. Um, both positive and negative. There's patterns to be seen. And I mean, I was still in my Space Brothers stage at that point, but now, upon recollect, the intelligent plasma hypothesis has come the closest to explaining or helping to explain some of these experiences far beyond any type of Syrian or Lyrian or Arcturian type of lore. You know what I mean? There's this cognitive human interface with plasma that we're having. And Dean Radin, I know I keep talking to him. He is my reality's version of Professor Dumbledore. He's going to remind us how magical we all are. He's going to let us know. But they actually did a study on psychosocial PK intent upon plasma, and actually showed plasma reacting to human mind intent. There's something with this phenomena that correlates with that, because I've also had experiments. Well, I'll go ahead and say the name now, because it was actually Alexei, the skate case was there, who's now working with Mupus directly. This is back in 2021, I want to say. Me, him, Ali, and a couple other people that were with UAP Society were doing a non-local CE5 experiments every week. And I was able to get everybody to concentrate on a certain shape during 1 week, like a triangle 1 week and a square the next week, or an orb the next week. And we saw the physical representations of those intents displayed for multiple of us in multiple different ways, and able to document it. And versus saying the aliens are just being nice, giving us what we want, there's a real argument for human mind intentions affecting the way that UAP represent.
Absolutely. And I think that, and I'm sure you've thought of this too before, B, but I think that there's probably some type of link to our DNA, right? And I think maybe there's like a symbiotic relationship, right? Like you are a big proponent of like the whole native integration, right, with these sentients, whatever you want to call them. And I think that probably has a big role to play in this, especially like you said, if our minds are interfacing with, let's just say it is a plasma, right? Then why is that relationship existing, right? That's nature, right? There's something's happening there. But I did want to ask you this before we had jumped on this topic, B. Looking at your picture here, I'm just curious, how did these orbs manifest? Like, how did you see them? Like, did they come up? Did they just appear? Like, come
They
together? Like,
just
can you
appeared.
give a little description on that?
They just appeared. At first, it was just the one, and then it's like the other three just popped in simultaneously beside them. And I remember they didn't move much, but you could see that they were there and
Like
floating beside
wobbling,
each other.
kind of?
Yeah, exactly. That phase. Oh, and there's also, speaking of my military experience with the Orange Orb, I was able to get one of those on film as well, and I also uploaded it, and it's doing that same phasing in and out, but my phone kept breaking off, like not shutting down, no red screen, just brick off. So I kept restarting it. And so I ended up with several real short videos, and finally just gave up. But that thing hung out there for 45 minutes to an hour. My husband, my son, everybody came out and saw it. But that was the closest that I've been able to document, similar to my naval experience with the orange orbs anyway. Oh, genetics. That is such a touchy topic in this
Yes. Yeah.
conversation. It is so tough. But cilantro, 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 cilantro. We
Yes,
now have
exactly.
proven that genetics alter the way one perceives the taste of cilantro. So it's with that in mind, it's not that far of a leap to presume that genetics would also alter the way one interprets and perceives with anomalous phenomena as well. There's a lot of hints, like even with Dr. Segala's first phase of the MUPA study, he stated that just through doing the statistical analysis of the observers slash experiencers that were in the study, that he was able to deduce which ones had indigenous genetics because of the way that they interpreted the phenomena. So there's
That's
real,
interesting.
and I mean, the theory of DNA being a fractal resonance, that would throw in there too, right? I mean, that would affect our intent and the volume of that intent upon anomalous phenomena.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, I always say this. I'm sure you've heard Screen say this. Nature is technology, right? So something's happening there, B. I did have some questions that I marked here on a favorite that Alex from UFO Twitter wanted to ask you, B, if that's okay. So, um, first off, I think he posed it initially this way. Sorry. I'm interested in if B had experiences with USOs or submersibles, and then following up, has B ever seen UFOs launch? I'm assuming from underwater or anything like that. So
Negative.
that's
I
his question.
haven't. No. Um, there is. I would say there is something to the lore that we hear of the interest or the sightings of UAP around bodies of water, because I mean, patterns don't lie. That there is a lot of sightings around water. Now, whether that's just because, around water is less light pollution and you can actually see, is still up for debate. But I myself, no, I have not.
Well, it's a fair question to ask, right? With you being in the Navy and then you seeing that
Absolutely.
initial orbs. I would have probably asked the same, but I'm glad Alex asked. Christian, you got anything for B?
Well, no, what do you call it? I guess maybe my question would be, do you feel like your family's military experience as well as your military experience has had any effect on, your sightings, or do you feel like it's roped you into this more, um, like being a service member as well as your family? Do you feel like that had any role to play?
I don't. I don't. I know that pattern is there as well, because there. I mean, there's just a lot of, well, service members are also put into positions and locations that civilians rarely see as well, right? um I come from a long line. Everybody in my family tree was in the military. Even even my indigenous ancestors were put into the colored troops because they were yellow. You know what I mean? But no, I don't see it having any forbearance on it. I do have other family members that have experienced stuff, not like mine. Like my granddad, my mom's dad, he died of Alzheimer's and dementia back in 2005. And before he had to be put in the hospital for help, they had to call the police out because he was on the rooftop in his Belvedere's with his shotgun shooting at them damn aliens. So, and there's a couple of things to just lore the family talking about it, but nothing concrete. But there is definitely signs that I come from a long line of experiencers. But I mean, I would argue that any current experiencer would also have that same background, because Dean Radin, Helena Wabe, Garrett Yount at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, they were actually propagated by Gary Nolan, no less, to do the genetics of psi study. And they ran that study from 2015 to 2018 and found genetic myriads that were directly representative of people with these psi abilities. And they were able to trace through the genetic database through their whole ancestry, and were able to analyze and find that, one, it is hereditary, but two, people that were like in the line of persecution because of these abilities, whether through colonialization or like the Salem witch trials or whatever, they were able to map out these genetic histories and show that when we repress these abilities, that these genes grow to regress, to repress these abilities as well, right? And there's something about trauma and about experiencing the phenomena itself that seems to be kickstarting these genes back online.
I think that's kind of that symbiotic relationship that I was referring to earlier. Maybe it's instinctual that these things maybe either somehow manifest in our reality because of our conscious state and it allows them to be seen, or they're there to comfort people, or even in certain cases to maybe warn people. I mean, there's so many variables to that, but I think that there maybe is some type of symbiotic relationship, if there is anything to the hereditary link and so forth. So, I mean, that's just it makes sense, right? Like, I love your cilantro analogy, B. It's so perfect. Christian, you got anything for B though?
Yeah, no, of course. And it was funny because I was listening like back to your experience where you're talking about like them just beaming down light, you know what I mean? I've experienced that as well, but the way I've experienced that was when an individual had passed away. You know what I mean? So I believe that there's a very strong and heavy correlation to like, the afterlife when it comes to these things as well. Um, but it kind of like ticked that box in my head. I was like, when that's happened before, it's very shocking. You know what I mean? Why don't we talk a little bit about how this is like, how you deal with this, like emotionally, how like it, affects your life, like how, like what would you do or to say like, an experiencer to help them like ground themselves a little bit, like to keep because you go through a lot, B. Like you've had a lot of experiences, and some very intense ones. Like, what do you do personally to keep your sanity, right? Because this is a big, big thing. You go through a lot.
That's a tough one. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that my family have seen this stuff with me, I would not be here today. I there's no way I could have done it without their support, and I understand that far too many people don't have that blessing. And I mean, this stuff, it almost destroyed me. It almost destroyed my marriage, my relationship with my kids, because nothing's the same. Nothing can do anymore. Your typical everyday, everything that was important to you before means nothing to you anymore, because it has nothing to do with the greater scheme of things. And you're right, there is something inextricably linked to that consciousness field, that field where all consciousness is conjoined and where all consciousness is one, right? As far as staying grounded in this stuff for new experiencers, you've got to find resources. There's some that have been popping up, but there's not nearly enough, and not enough attention, or people just don't know about them. You've got to find the others, right? But finding the others is also an issue in itself, because this stuff is so jolting. Maintaining being grounded. I mean, you guys see me in spaces a lot, but you guys are literally the only people that I could talk to this stuff about. I'm out in public, and you can't talk about this stuff to anybody. You can just wonder, you look at people as they pass by. I wonder if they know. I wonder how they react if they saw this stuff, but you can't. You just can't. And seeing stuff and documenting stuff is one thing, but it's through that cognitive human interface, the quote unquote downloads, the feelings, the everything else. There is no space or time to talk about that stuff without people looking at you like you're absolutely insane.
Yeah, I agree. And got a little emotional there, honestly, because when you said that this affects or has affected your life, um, I don't know, I resonate with that so much because um, I don't know, maybe I'll just be honest. There's a period of time, I think maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but for me, and maybe in your case, I'm not trying to speak for you either, but there's like an obsession, right? That starts to happen. And there's a lot of good that can come out of that, right? But there's also a lot of negativity too around that. And that could just be within yourself, like constantly wondering, right? Constantly wanting the answers. And that within itself, I think, is torturous, to be honest. And it's like you said, there's not a lot of safe spaces, right? But that's why you're here with us, right? And I really appreciate you being honest and open about that, because that's really hard. And you know, it having an effect on your family, I can resonate with that too. And then to Christian's point too about, of course, when you lose somebody or having trauma, I resonate with that as well. And I know you know that too, B. And I know that you've probably experienced a lot of different, you can probably call it paranormal, precognitive, or phenomena related, right? But it's all like in that bucket of trauma. So I just want to applaud you is kind of my main point. I really want to applaud you and let you know people really do listen to you on X, and they look up to the person you are and how strong you are. So I wanted to say that before anything else. So yeah.
That means a lot. That means so much. I will share. I would love to share with you specifically. I don't know if you saw it, but the instance that gave myself and my family proof or peace was when my dad passed. Because I was in that same house where I filmed this profile pic, and I hadn't talked to my dad in a couple of years. Hadn't talked to my sister in over a year. And I'm just laying in bed watching TV, and all of a sudden I see an orange orb in the top corner of my room. And I instantly knew it was my dad. Without a doubt, that's my dad. Didn't have my phone. My phone was dead. I get up, run out to the front porch where my husband and my mother-in-law were. Asked to borrow my husband's phone. Called my sister. She answered on the second ring. Bep, I don't know what's wrong with Dad. He's in the hospital. I don't know what's wrong. They just took him back. And I said, baby, he's gone. She said, what? I gotta go. I gotta go. She hung up. It wasn't until a few days later that we were all able to piece together that there was no way that I could conceivably have known that something was wrong. None whatsoever. But I knew because he come to see me. And that in itself gave my family so much peace when we were able to come to that. Death is not the end.
Ooh. Yeah, you guys, you got me tearing up a little bit there. That's powerful. I I spent so many nights thinking the same thing, even standing out there thinking the same thing, almost like this longing, right? And I love that you said that this is not the end, right? And I always think that. I always think that, especially yesterday, right? Yesterday was Mother's Day, and that was like just so much, you know what I mean? But not to make it about me, I'm just saying it's like the whole aspect of this being so close to the heart, right? Like even if you're going to take like a union type of perspective and just make it some type of psychological metaphor, right? Maybe you're just either hallucinating or you're imagining a stars, an orb, whatever, right? Like that means something. Like you're connecting with reality. And I think that that's something that a lot of experiencers should probably take into consideration. And you know, we talk about, right, like we give advice to people, take a break or balance out your life, right? And I think this is why, because it's so heavy, right? And I really would probably emphasize that for a lot of people. But again, thanks for sharing that story, B. That was amazing, and that really hit home for me. But Christian, do you got anything here as we close out? Any other questions for B?
I just want to say thank you to B, you know what I mean, for being exactly who she is in the community as a resource for other experiencers, as well as coming with all the facts. You know what I mean? There's a lot of facts that B has about this. You know what I mean? That, and I always try to send people your direction, B, because like I'm not good with the science and lingo and all that, but you are. Like you are a like you're an Avenger, like you're a superhero when it comes to disclosure and the phenomena. Remember that, guys, because B is at the forefront of this. Um, and I just want to thank you for sharing, you know, your knowledge and your experiences with the community, because, you know, I don't think we'd have as many answers about what we're dealing with otherwise. So thank you, B, for being here with us and sharing.
Wow. Wow, that's huge. Wow.
It's true. It's honestly true, and it's something to be grateful, right? In the midst of the world we call UFO Twitter, it's kind of nice to have something good every once in a while. So I would take it and run with it.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for what you guys are doing. It truly, you're making a difference. And I see you popping up messages from all our friends, sending out all my love and support always to all of you guys.
Definitely, definitely. Well, B, I think this was perfect. I think this was perfect. Christian, what do you think? Do you think this was a good one?
Oh, yeah. What do you call it? We could talk for hours about B's experiences, though. So we'll definitely have to do a part two.
Deal.
Yeah. Deal. All right, B. Well, thank you so much again for being so open and honest and sharing all your knowledge with the community. And everybody in the chat that showed up tonight, I appreciate you guys. Please make sure to like, share, comment, all that good stuff. You want to support the show, go down in the description, follow B. Her X handles there as well. And again, Christian, thanks so much for co-hosting. Everybody, thanks again for tuning into the Portal Room, and hope everybody has a good night.
Good night.
Peace.
Good night.